There's a photograph from 1929. Two baby girls, born the same year in Europe. Both will live through Nazi occupation. Both will hide from German soldiers. Both will face starvation, terror, and the very real possibility of death. One will die in March 1945, just weeks before liberation. The other will survive in April 1945 and become one of the most famous actresses in the world. The difference between life and death? 1 month, 30 days. This is the story Audrey Hepburn never wanted to tell. The story of her and Anne Frank. The guilt that haunted her for 48 years. And why she spent the rest of her life trying to save the children she couldn't save then. 1929. Two girls are born in Europe, just months apart. Anne Frank is born June 12, 1929, in Frankfurt, Germany. Audrey Hepburn is born May 4, 1929, in Brussels, Belgium. They will never meet, but their lives will run parallel in ways that are almost unbearable to contemplate. Both will be caught in the machinery of the Holocaust. Both will experience hunger, fear, and the daily terror of Nazi occupation. And both will become symbols, though in completely different ways. Anne Frank will become the face of 6 million murdered Jews, her diary the most powerful Holocaust testimony ever written. Audrey Hepburn will become the face of Hollywood elegance, her films watched by billions. But between these two fates, death and fame, there is only 1 month of difference. 1 month that changed everything. 1930, Anne Frank is 4 years old when Hitler comes to power in Germany. Her family sees what's coming. They're Jewish in a country that's rapidly turning into a death machine. In 1934, the Franks flee to Amsterdam, Netherlands. They think they'll be safe there. The Netherlands is neutral, civilized, democratic. They're wrong, but they don't know that yet. Meanwhile, Audrey Hepburn is also 4 years old, living in Belgium with her mother, Ella van Heemstra. Her father, Joseph, has just abandoned the family. Audrey will later call this the most traumatic event of my life. Worse than the war, worse than starvation. At 4 years old, she doesn't understand why her father left. She just knows he's gone. Her mother moves them around. Belgium, England, back to Belgium. They're wealthy. Ella comes from Dutch nobility. Audrey attends private schools, takes ballet lessons, lives the life of a privileged European child. But that life is about to end for everyone. May 10th, 1940. Germany invades the Netherlands. The neutral country falls in 5 days. 5 days. The blitzkrieg is so fast, so overwhelming that there's no time to escape. The Franks are trapped in Amsterdam. They're Jewish, and now they're under Nazi occupation. It's only a matter of time. Meanwhile, Audrey and her mother are in Arnhem, Netherlands. They'd moved there in 1939 because Ella thought they'd be safer in her native country. Another miscalculation. Now they're trapped too. Audrey is 11 years old. Anne Frank is 10. Both are about to experience the next 5 years in Nazi-occupied Netherlands. Both will see people rounded up and taken away. Both will see public executions. Both will face starvation. Both will wonder every single day if they'll survive. The difference is, Anne won't. Audrey will. And Audrey will spend the rest of her life asking why. 1940 to 1942. For 2 years, the Nazis tighten their grip. Jews are required to wear yellow stars. Jewish children are expelled from schools. Jewish businesses are confiscated. Jewish families are registered, cataloged, prepared for deportation. Anne Frank, now 11, then 12, then 13, watches her world shrink. She can't go to the movies, can't ride a bike, can't be outside after 8 p.m., can't swim, can't visit non-Jewish friends. Every month brings new restrictions. Every week, more Jewish families disappear. Everyone knows where they're going. The transit camp at Westerbork, then the trains to Poland. Nobody comes back. In 1942, Anne's older sister Margot receives a call-up notice. Report for deportation. The Franks know what this means. On July 6, 1942, they go into hiding. The secret annex, a hidden apartment behind Otto Frank's business at Prinsengracht 263, Amsterdam. Anne is 13 years old. She will spend the next 2 years in those rooms, never seeing daylight, never going outside, writing in her diary. Meanwhile, Audrey Hepburn is living in Arnhem with her mother. They're not Jewish, so they're not targeted for deportation. But they're still occupied, still starving, still living in constant fear. Audrey's mother, Ella, has a secret that won't come out until decades later. She was a Nazi sympathizer before the war. She joined the British Union of Fascists. She met Hitler in 1935. She believed in all of it: the racial theories, the eugenics, the new order. But the war changed her. When she saw what the Nazis actually did, the executions, the deportations, the cruelty, something broke. She stopped believing. And her daughter Audrey made a different choice entirely. At 15 years old, Audrey joined the Dutch resistance. She carried secret messages in her shoes. She performed illegal ballet concerts to raise money for the resistance, dancing in blacked-out rooms with the windows covered so the Nazis wouldn't hear. She helped smuggle food to Allied pilots whose planes had crashed. She was a teenage girl doing incredibly dangerous work. If she'd been caught, she would have been shot. Just like the people she saw executed in the streets. Just like the families rounded up and sent to camps. She knew the risks. She did it anyway. August 4th, 1944. Someone betrays the Franks. We still don't know who. The Gestapo raids the secret annex. Anne Frank, now 15 years old, is arrested along with her parents, her sister Margot, and the 4 other people hiding with them. They're sent to Westerbork transit camp. Then, on September 3rd, 1944, they're loaded onto one of the last trains to Auschwitz. Anne and Margot survive the initial selection. Thousands don't. They're sent directly to the gas chambers. But Anne and Margot are young, healthy enough to work. They're tattooed with numbers, stripped of their names, put to work in conditions designed to kill them slowly. Meanwhile, 200 kilometers away in Arnhem, Audrey Hepburn is experiencing a different kind of hell. September 1944 is when Operation Market Garden happens, the failed Allied attempt to liberate the Netherlands by capturing bridges. The Battle of Arnhem lasts 9 days. When it's over, the Allies have lost, and the Nazis punish the Dutch population by imposing the Hunger Winter, September 1944 to April 1945. The Hunger Winter. The Nazis block all food supplies to Western Netherlands in retaliation for the failed Allied offensive and Dutch railway strikes. The goal is to starve the population into submission. It works. Over 20,000 Dutch civilians die of starvation during these months. Audrey Hepburn, age 15, drops to 88 pounds. She's 5 feet 6 inches tall, 88 pounds. Her body starts consuming itself. She develops anemia, jaundice, edema, her body swelling from malnutrition. She eats tulip bulbs, boiled grass, anything that might have calories. Her mother tells her to drink water to feel full. There is no food. People are dying in the streets. Audrey sees bodies every day. Children, old people, anyone too weak to survive on nothing. She works as a volunteer nurse at the local hospital, age 16, tending to wounded resistance fighters and civilians. She sees horrors that will haunt her forever. And every day she wonders, will I survive this? Will I die like the people in the streets? Will I make it to liberation? At the exact same time, 200 kilometers away, Anne Frank is experiencing something even worse. October 1944. Anne and Margot Frank are transported from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany. Bergen-Belsen is not an extermination camp. It has no gas chambers. But it's almost worse because of that. It's a slow death camp, a place where people die from disease, starvation, and neglect. There's no food, no clean water, no medical care. Typhus is everywhere. The camp is overcrowded with tens of thousands of prisoners, all starving, all sick, all dying. Anne and Margot sleep in barracks with hundreds of other women. They have no blankets. It's winter. They're starving. Both girls contract typhus. Both are dying. In late February or early March 1945, the exact date is uncertain, Margot Frank dies. She was 19 years old. A few days later, Anne Frank dies. She was 15 years old. The best estimate is late March 1945, possibly early March. Her body is thrown into a mass grave with thousands of others. There is no marker, no record. She is gone. 3 weeks later, on April 15, 1945, British troops liberate Bergen-Belsen. 3 weeks. If Anne had survived 3 more weeks, she would have been liberated. She would have lived. But she didn't. She died in March 1945, probably around March 31st. April 1945. Arnhem is liberated by Canadian troops. Audrey Hepburn, age 16, barely alive, weighing 88 pounds, sick with anemia and jaundice and edema, sees Allied soldiers for the first time in 5 years. She's in the streets with other starving Dutch civilians when the trucks arrive. The soldiers throw food to the crowd. Audrey catches a chocolate bar. She eats it so fast she vomits. Her body can't process real food anymore. But she's alive. Liberation has come. She survived. At almost exactly the same time, possibly the same day, Anne Frank is dead in an unmarked mass grave at Bergen-Belsen. The difference between Audrey Hepburn's survival and Anne Frank's death is approximately 1 month, maybe less. 30 days between life and death. 30 days between becoming a Hollywood icon and becoming a Holocaust statistic. 30 days that Audrey Hepburn will think about for the rest of her life. 1945 to 1952. Audrey slowly recovers. She moves to Amsterdam, then to London. She studies ballet, but her body is permanently damaged from malnutrition. She can never become a prima ballerina. She turns to acting instead. Small roles in British films, chorus girl work, bit parts. She's unknown, struggling. But she's alive, and she's working, and she's moving forward. Meanwhile, Anne Frank's diary is published in 1947 by her father, Otto Frank, the only member of the secret annex to survive. The book is called Het Achterhuis, the secret annex, in Dutch. It doesn't sell well at first, but slowly it gains attention. In 1952, It's translated into English as The Diary of a Young Girl. It becomes an international sensation. Suddenly, the world knows Anne Frank's name, knows her story, knows what she went through, knows she died just weeks before liberation. The book is everywhere, and Audrey Hepburn reads it. 1952. Audrey Hepburn is 23 years old. She's just been cast in Roman Holiday opposite Gregory Peck. Her career is about to explode. She's in a hotel room somewhere. Accounts differ on exactly where. And she picks up The Diary of Anne Frank. She starts reading, and she realizes this girl was her. Same age, same country, same war, same occupation, same starvation, same terror. The only difference is that Anne was Jewish and hiding in an attic in Amsterdam, while Audrey was not Jewish and hiding in plain sight in Arnhem. But they lived through the same hell. They were both 15 in 1944. They both nearly died. And then Audrey gets to the end of the book. Anne Frank died in March 1945. Bergen-Belsen was liberated in April 1945. Audrey was liberated in April 1945. The proximity is unbearable. According to multiple sources, Audrey breaks down crying. She can't finish the book. She has to put it down. The guilt is overwhelming. Why did she survive when Anne didn't? Why did she get to become a movie star while Anne died in a mass grave? Why did liberation come just in time for Audrey, but too late for Anne? There's no answer. There's never an answer. It's just chance, geography, timing, luck. 1 month of difference, but Audrey can't accept that. She carries the guilt for the rest of her life. If you're starting to understand why Audrey Hepburn spent her final years working for UNICEF, subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this story. This isn't just about 2 girls in World War II. This is about survivor's guilt and the choices we make when we're given a second chance. 1959. George Stevens is directing The Diary of Anne Frank as a Hollywood film. It's one of the most anticipated movies of the decade. Everyone wants to see Anne's story brought to the screen. The role of Anne Frank is the most sought-after part in Hollywood. Every young actress wants it. Stevens offers the role to Audrey Hepburn. It makes perfect sense. She's the biggest star in the world. She's Dutch. She lived through the Nazi occupation. She knows exactly what Anne Frank experienced because she experienced it herself. She would be perfect. Audrey reads the script, and she says no. She can't do it. She won't do it. When people ask her why, she gives polite, vague answers. The role should go to an unknown actress. I'm too old now. Anne deserves someone younger. But those aren't the real reasons. The real reason is that Audrey can't bear it. She can't spend months playing a girl who died when Audrey survived. She can't relive the occupation, the starvation, the fear. Not in a movie, not for entertainment. Not when the real girl died in a mass grave 1 month before Audrey was liberated. It's too painful, too close, too much guilt. The role goes to Millie Perkins, an unknown 20-year-old actress. The film is released in 1959. It's nominated for 8 Academy Awards. It wins 3. It brings Anne Frank's story to millions of people who never read the diary. And Audrey Hepburn watches it and cries. She can't escape Anne Frank. She'll never escape Anne Frank. Because Anne Frank is the ghost that follows her forever. The girl who was just like her, who went through everything she went through, who could have survived. who should have survived, who died 1 month too soon. 1 month. That's all it was. 1 month of difference between Audrey Hepburn's fame and Anne Frank's death. And Audrey knows it. And she can never forget it. 1960s to 1980s, Audrey Hepburn becomes one of the most famous women in the world. Breakfast at Tiffany's, My Fair Lady, Charade, Wait Until Dark, icon, legend, America's sweetheart, the epitome of elegance and grace. She's wealthy, she's celebrated, she's everything Anne Frank never got to be. And that's the problem. Because Audrey knows, she always knows, that if things had been slightly different, if geography had been slightly different, if timing had been slightly different, she could have been Anne Frank. She could have been the girl in the attic. She could have been the girl who died in March 1945. She survived by chance, by luck. By 1 month, that's not a talent, that's not an achievement. That's just luck. And how do you live with that? How do you enjoy your fame and your wealth and your success when you know that someone just like you, someone who deserved life just as much as you, died because they were born in the wrong city, to the wrong parents, at the wrong time? The guilt eats at Audrey. She doesn't talk about it publicly. She's too private for that. But people close to her know. Her son, Luca, will later say, "My mother never escaped the war. She had nightmares. She hoarded food, always keeping bread in her purse, always afraid of starvation. Even when she was wealthy and famous, she was obsessed with children's charities. She donated constantly. She sponsored children in need. She couldn't say no to any charity involving children, because every starving child she saw was Anne Frank. Every child in danger was the child she couldn't save. Every refugee was the person she survived when millions didn't. The guilt was permanent, inescapable. And then, in 1988, she found a way to do something about it. 1988, Audrey Hepburn is 59 years old. She's essentially retired from acting. She's living in Switzerland with her partner, Robert Wolders. Her sons are grown. She's done. She could spend the rest of her life in comfort, enjoying her wealth and her legacy. But then UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, asks if she'd be willing to serve as a goodwill ambassador. They want her to use her fame to bring attention to children in crisis around the world. Children suffering from war, famine, disease, poverty, children who need help, children who are dying. Audrey says yes immediately. It's not a casual commitment. It's not a few photo ops and fundraising galas. Audrey throws herself into the work completely. She travels to the most dangerous, most desperate places on earth. Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, Bangladesh, El Salvador, Guatemala, Vietnam. These are war zones, famine zones, places where children are starving to death, places that remind her, viscerally, of her own childhood. And that's exactly why she goes. 1988 to 1993. For the last 5 years of her life, Audrey Hepburn is barely a movie star anymore. She's a humanitarian. She spends months every year in the field, visiting refugee camps, feeding centers, hospitals. She holds dying children in her arms. She sits with mothers who've lost their families. She sees starvation, real starvation, the kind that kills, and she recognizes it. She's seen it before. She's lived it before. In 1989, she's appointed a Goodwill Ambassador officially. She gives speeches at the United Nations. She testifies before the U.S. Congress. She uses her fame to beg for funding, for food, for medical supplies, for intervention. And when people ask her why she's doing this, why she's risking her health, her safety, her life in these dangerous places, she's honest. "I have a lot to be grateful for," she says. "I received food packages after the war. UNICEF saved my life. These children deserve the same chance." But there's more to it than that. Her son, Luca, understands. "My mother felt she was one of them," he later explains. "She survived starvation as a child. She saw people die around her. She was saved by relief packages, and she spent the rest of her life paying that debt forward." But it's not just debt. It's guilt. It's Anne Frank. Every starving child Audrey sees is Anne Frank at Bergen-Belsen. Every refugee is the person who didn't make it to April 1945. Every child she saves is the one she couldn't save in 1945. She's trying to rescue Anne Frank retroactively. She's trying to undo the survivor's guilt that's haunted her for 43 years. She's trying to justify why she survived when millions didn't. And she works herself to death doing it. 1922. Audrey Hepburn is 63 years old. She's exhausted. She's been traveling constantly for 4 years. She's been to the hardest places in the world. She's pushed herself beyond her limits. And now, she's sick. She has abdominal pain. Severe. She sees doctors in Switzerland. They run tests. The diagnosis is devastating. Pseudomyxoma peritoniae, a rare, aggressive form of appendix cancer. It's already advanced. It's already spreading. She has months, maybe a year if she's lucky. The doctors want to operate, but the prognosis is bad. Audrey knows she's dying. She's been a heavy smoker since age 15, 3 packs a day for most of her life. That probably contributed. But she's also exhausted herself with UNICEF work. The travel, the stress, the exposure to disease in refugee camps. Her body is worn out. At 63, she looks 75. The war took decades off her life. The guilt took the rest. She goes home to Switzerland, to Toloshenas, her small village on Lake Geneva. She spends her last months with Robert Wolders and her 2 sons, Sean and Luca. She's in pain, but she's at peace. She's done everything she could. She saved thousands of children through UNICEF. She used her fame for something meaningful. She tried to make up for surviving. Whether she succeeded is impossible to say. On January 20th, 1993, Audrey Hepburn dies at home, surrounded by her family. She's 63 years old. Her last words are unknown. Her son Rob tried to lift the phone to her ear, but she was too weak. She whispered something nobody could hear, and then she was gone. Among her possessions, carefully preserved, photographs, letters, and a worn copy of The Diary of Anne Frank. The book she could never finish. The girl she could never save. The 1-month difference that defined her life. Anne Frank died March 1945. Audrey Hepburn was liberated. April 1945, approximately 1 month. 30 days. That's the difference between death and survival. Between obscurity and fame. Between a mass grave and a Hollywood legend. And Audrey knew it. Every single day of her life, she knew it. The guilt never left. The question never left. Why me? Why did I survive when she didn't? There's no good answer. There never is. Survival is random. Geography is random. Timing is random. It's not fair. It's not earned. It's just chance. But Audrey couldn't accept that. So she spent 48 years, from 1945 to 1993, trying to justify her survival, trying to save the children she couldn't save then, trying to be worthy of the life Anne Frank never got to live. In 1993, Audrey receives the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. President Clinton presents it to her sons. The citation reads, "In recognition of her work as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador." Also in 1993, she receives the John Hirschholt Humanitarian Award from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. It's the Oscars she always deserved, not for acting, but for being human, for caring, for spending her final years in refugee camps and war zones instead of on movie sets, for choosing children over comfort, for trying desperately to make up for the random chance that saved her life. And maybe, just maybe, if Anne Frank's ghost could speak, she'd say, "Audrey, you didn't need to feel guilty. You survived. I didn't. That's not your fault. That's just what happened. But what you did with that survival, the children you saved, the attention you brought to suffering, the way you used your fame to help people who had no voice, that's what matters. You didn't waste the life I never got to have. You used it for something good. That's enough. That's more than enough." But Audrey never heard that. She carried the guilt until she died, the girl who survived by 1 month, the woman who spent 48 years trying to save all the Anne Franks she couldn't save in 1945. This is what survivor's guilt looks like. This is what it means to live when others die for no reason. This is the story Audrey Hepburn never wanted to tell, but lived every single day. The 1-month difference that changed everything. If you want to understand why seemingly perfect people carry invisible burdens, subscribe to this channel. These stories aren't just about Hollywood. They're about being human, about guilt and grace and the impossible task of living a life someone else never got to have. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. This is Audrey Hepburn, The Hidden Truth. From wartime horrors to Hollywood secrets, we uncover what they've been hiding for decades. Subscribe to discover the dark truth behind the elegant image.